Okay, I've been given the question now. How can a loving God allow suffering? Right? Like in 5 minutes, sure. So I'll move through some of this quickly, but I hope it'll be helpful. And now again, like I did earlier, like where's the question coming from? And there's a key thing to think about here with the question of suffering in regard to, is the question abstract or is it personal pain? Okay, see, because if someone's in the midst of pain, no answer is good enough. Essentially, your brain can be overcome with the suffering of your body. When someone's in that place, they need to be cared for until they're ready to reflect in such a way that their body doesn't direct the discussion. Okay? So I've seen people who have completely thrown away their faith because of something that was painful for them that they couldn't reconcile. And it's because in the middle of that pain, they were trying to think about big questions about their existence and the world and about God. And actually, their pain was directing the discussion. Their body, essentially, was directing the discussion. And so to that person, they need to know that you care and that God cares. And that God wants to comfort them in their time of need. But they don't necessarily need answers in that moment. In fact, it might be counterproductive. So it's just something to be aware of. The answer to the question of pain and suffering is complicated in that, and I want you to get this because I think it's helpful, in that there are many types of pain, and the different types of pain require different answers. And this often gets glossed over. And by the way, there's so many books on this, but there you go. And so what I want to just give you a little bit of a glimpse into right now is kind of what are the types of pain and how might they be understood. And so, I mean, think about this. On one level, pain is often a protection system for us. And so at a certain level, it's helpful to us. When it becomes more extreme, we wish it would go away. And again, the different sources of pain require different answers. So here's some examples. One source of pain would be that people are broken. They have free choice and can make decisions that hurt others. This pain exists because God has given us free will so that we can choose Him in this lifetime. That free will, however, also gives us the ability to hurt God and to hurt others. Okay? And so, again, there's almost the answer to the type of pain that comes from the brokenness of people has to do with God's bigger plan as to why we have free will and the ability to hurt each other. Or a second source of pain is that's similar, connected, is that God's generosity has been subverted by human free will and greed. And so, for example, why do the rich have fields that go uncultivated while the poor starve? Is that God's fault? And often someone might want to go, that's God's fault. When sometimes it's not God's fault, but it's actually because God's generosity. He's provided what's needed for the poor, and yet it's been subverted by human free will and greed. Okay? It's another type of source of pain. Another source of pain that we might recognize here is that the world is broken. The sin of Adam and Eve fractured things at a very basic level. This is important for understanding pain that comes from things like genetic mutation, a birth defect, the bite of a dog, or even an earthquake. People often say that babies are born perfect. No, it's not true. We're part of a broken creation. This world is broken. That's why we can say, like we heard recently in church, Romans 8:20, that the world was subjected to frustration. So this world is broken. Fourthly, our expectations are broken. Our sense of unfairness generally comes from our expectations, and often they're skewed. And so pain can be subjective. So, for example, a child might be in pain with floods of tears. You've seen this, you've experienced this, wailing. Why? Because they have to go to school, right? Like, is that pain? Well, yes. Or if your sibling gets a bigger scoop of ice cream than you do, it's unfair, but you didn't care when you didn't think either of you would get ice cream. See, pain can be the result of good things taken away. It's highly related to our expectations, and so there are types of pain that can be subjective. Fifthly, what we want isn't always what's best. We might experience something as pain when it's actually good for us. And some other things are connected to this as well, but again, there's some things that might be good for us, and yet, again, we don't always want what's best. Sixth, suffering can be a blessing. The early Christians were amazing on this. So for example, James 1 verse 2, when it says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds." Consider it pure joy when you face trials. Why? Because the testing of your faith develops perseverance. Like, the early church welcomed suffering for the good that comes with it. And so some facets of character are best developed from experiencing suffering. And so suffering can be a blessing. And in fact, there is some suffering that changes to blessing when it's embraced. So take physical fitness as an example, right? You know, sometimes physical fitness, when you're first learning a new sport or new whatever it is, it's pain. And then as you develop in that, you might come to enjoy it. And so notice what's happened there is that something that was painful becomes a blessing. And so there are some types of pain that function like this. And then seventh, every good thing is grace. Instead of asking, why is there pain? Start by asking, why is there joy or love or beauty? Been reading a book recently on the theology of beauty, and it's amazing how much it addresses the problem of pain. Paul Tillich said he became a philosopher when someone asked him the question, why something and not nothing? And so we should also focus on the positive and what that says about God. And so why does pain exist? If we go big picture, I believe things like pain, need, uncertainty, and death function in our life to create a space where we need God and can develop trust in Him. There's a greater good accomplished by the existence of pain, and one day that pain will be taken away. And as Christians, we believe that this world is temporary, the poor will be rewarded, pain will be forgotten, and heaven is coming. And so we can connect with things like 2 Corinthians 4 verse 17, where Paul's able to say, referring to a list of crazy, painful experiences that he had, he's able to say, for our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. I love that. He's referring to a whole list of persecutions, horrible things, and yet he refers to them as light and momentary, because they are in contrast with the permanence and weight and significance of eternity. And so, connected to this, I believe that the memory of pain will be removed or forgotten in eternity. That's why we can read in Revelation 21 verse 4, He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. So when you talk to someone about the question of pain and suffering, first of all, where is it coming from? Because it might be very personal, it might be very significant, or it might be abstract. But then as well, what type of pain are we talking about? Because there are lots of different types of pain and different answers to those different types. And by lumping it all together, we don't do justice